Welcome to the fourth devlog for Into the Dungeon, the VR dungeon crawler game that is ruining my life. I'm Isaac, the developer, and I'm freaking pumped to show you what I've been working on since my last update. In my last devlog, I gave you a glimpse into the game's combat system and the challenges with getting smooth-feeling VR combat. Since then, I've been working my booty off, improving the game and addressing your feedback to deliver an even more immersive experience. So, let's jump right into the first update, combat balances. Combat is going to be a super important mechanic of Into the Dungeon, so I feel justified in putting in some extra time with the details, making it feel as satisfying as possible. First off, I've been playing a lot of Oblivion lately, which is a really good example of this. You know that stupid thing in a bunch of games where you just hit the enemy, back up to avoid taking damage, walk forward again to hit, and repeat over and over until they're dead? Not in my house. I reduced the backward speed by a lot, so players have to actually block and parry when they're facing their opponent. Or if you want to back up, or run away, you have to turn all the way around and really commit to fleeing. But with how satisfying it feels to parry these attacks, I don't know why you'd ever run. It takes some practice to get down, which is good. I want there to be a skill element to it. But once you've got it, you feel like a friggin' samurai or something, blocking and parrying. I also added enemy body part damage, so hitting an enemy in a specific spot actually has a noticeable effect. Individual muscles on the enemy get weaker as they get more damaged, making them react more naturally to your hits, and making their animations weaker. In addition to the standard combat mechanics, I've added some new ways for players to take down their enemies. You can now grab and stab enemies with your weapon or bare hands. This feature not only adds an extra layer of strategy to the game, but also allows for more immersive combat. You'll feel like you're really in the thick of battle when you grab an enemy and thrust your weapon into their chest. And if you're skilled enough, you can even disarm an enemy and take their weapon for yourself. But be prepared, they'll fight you for it. While they're alive, they'll struggle against you when you grab them, trying to break free or attack you while you're close. Once they're dead though, you can throw them around or maybe put them on display. Dismemberment, finally. I am really excited to talk about this one because it was a real challenge. As you may remember from my previous devlog, I set out to create a realistic dismemberment system, but holy crap it was tough. I tried a bunch of different methods, most were dead ends, I wasted so much time. The Discord was super helpful though, lots of different tips. One other VR developer, Stoutasy? I don't know how you say that. It's on the screen. Even introduced me to an asset that, for multiple reasons, I couldn't get to work in my project, but it still gave me an excellent starting point. I linked his website in the description because he's also got a fantasy dungeon VR game, so if you're here, I know you're interested. Plus, his game has the advantage of actually, being out. Anyway, in the end, I had to do some 3D modeling to get the dismemberment working, and if you followed me on TikTok before, you know how much 3D modeling is the bane of my existence. But I persevered, and I'm happy to say that the results are so worth it. You can now chop off limbs and the head of the enemy. You do so by hitting the joint you want to sever at an exactly perpendicular angle. At first, you have to be very precise with your strikes, but as you damage that limb and make it weaker, the angle at which you can dismember it grows larger. And if you're sneaky and manage to catch an enemy off guard, you'll have a higher chance to dismember them, aka the angle will be more tolerant. Now you can chop off their head and play golf with it, or put it on your sword to carry around like the sadistic person you are. Or you can chop off their arm and slap them in the face with their own hand. If you chop a leg off, they'll hop around just like we used to do when we were kids playing with those cheap plastic lightsabers and somebody chopped off your leg, except their leg is actually gone. If you manage to chop off both their legs, which is really hard to do while they're hopping around all over the place, then they'll just crawl around, occasionally attempting to attack you until you finally just put them out of their misery. And that's it for this devlog of Into the Dungeon. As always, thanks so much for your support and feedback about the combat you saw in the last video. It was genuinely super helpful. And speaking of feedback, my next devlog will be accompanied with the release of the first beta version of Into the Dungeon. The beta version will look similar to the room you've seen in these devlogs, with maybe a few additional obstacles or something, but the main purpose of this first beta will be just to test combat and get your feedback on how we can continue to improve it. I've just got to clean up some bugs and add in a bunch more weapons. I don't exactly know when that will be, but know that it's coming relatively soon. If you're interested, be sure to sign up to be a beta tester at the link in the description. Thanks again for joining me on this adventure, and I'll see you in the next one.